What is the meaning of life? Or is it what makes life meaningful? Are we affected by what we see in our past? Or by what we can't see in our future? Is anxiety and depression the cause? Or are they just the effects? Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to Thinking Out Loud Live. My name is Ricardo Zulueta and I'm your host. So this show was made possible by Start Day One, which is a nonprofit foundation for mental health and suicide prevention, where we have a more proactive approach in helping people rather than reactively waiting for people to get mental health issues or suicidal tendencies. So we make this content just so we can hopefully reach out to people and change your perspectives and basically just help you with your pursuit of living life of fulfillment. So today we're going to be actually talking to a very interesting dude. His name is Jeremy Norrie. He's a director, producer. He's been doing a lot of films for Amazon and different places. And so we're going to be talking to him about his past experiences that really helped him along the way, and how his film is actually helping other people with dealing with adversity. So please welcome Jeremy. Hey, what's going on? How's it going?
Pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, definitely. So I did a quick intro, kind of looked at it, but because I usually want people to hear directly from the
Right.
guest. So just kind of give them an idea, a quick glimpse of at least who you were, where you're coming from. We got to know where you're coming from.
No problem. Yeah, and I can kind of get the direction of your show, so I'll kind of tie my explanation of who I am into that whole theme.
Perfect. Yeah, go on ahead.
So I grew up here in California. I am now a director and a producer of independent documentaries. But growing up here, I had a hard childhood. I was not one of the popular kids at school. I was different. I, fought that for a while. It was really difficult for me. But then eventually I started to embrace being different. And, it wasn't a quick process, but growing up, I learned a lot. And eventually I started getting into all kinds of different subjects and different jobs of different kinds. And that led me to the start of my really adventurous career. So I wrote for some MMA websites, so martial arts websites that are about the UFC and that kind of stuff, back when it was very, very early on. And I was doing that online, and that kind of led me to becoming a journalist for a magazine that was about cannabis. And then it was specifically kind of tied towards medical cannabis. So doing that, I learned all kinds of things. I met all kinds of different people, and it led me to a career in cannabis. And I did all kinds of different jobs, and I made all kinds of achievements in that whole industry. And eventually I was throwing these cannabis competitions and concerts that were all over the world. And we knew we had something special. Growing up, I had also always been a fan of film, movies, TV. It was one of the things that I kind of clung to. I wasn't, out and about with my friends all the time. I was a lot of times just watching TV shows and watching movies. So I always had a love for it. And I learned a lot from documentaries. And I knew our event was like a special thing. So we started filming it. And eventually those events became very difficult to do, and we lost kind of the momentum that we had. But I filmed our first documentary about one of those events. And then through doing that, we had this long period of time where I learned like a crash course of what filmmaking is like, and all kinds of different hurdles that I had to jump. But eventually I met the people that I work with now. And we are just about to release that film, 8 years in the making, my first official film project. And but like kind of doing that, I learned that it's a lot easier to make things correctly from the beginning than it is to fix something that you already made. So we had the opportunity to do other concepts that I was interested in. My partner now, he was a horror filmmaker and he was transitioning into making documentaries. So I had this cannabis tie-in and I had a few different cannabis documentaries that I wanted to make. And so we started that. And that was the medical aspect that I feel like now is kind of getting overshadowed by a lot of the money aspect, recreational and that side. So we did these 3 documentaries about cannabis. And then he says to me, he's like, hey, you know, we worked pretty well together. These are all the other themes that do better financially. You know, are you interested in any of these other subjects? And a few of the subjects I was really interested in. And that just began this whole journey. And now we make all kinds of documentaries about all kinds of different subjects. And some of them have been really popular, and some people have gotten a lot of help from our films. So I'm super proud of that. We're starting to win some awards. It's a great journey. So that's me.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Yeah. So that's a great start because, you know, so now that you know, like, you know, what we're trying to do, because to me, it makes sense. Like when you say, you know, helping people with film, because it really, especially when you attach their emotions, right?
Mhm.
And to me, what I always tell people, it's all about your perspectives, because that's where everything stems from. Um, when we talk about suicidal tendencies, when I mentioned that, you know, everyone is reactive, what they do is do this. Hey, Jeremy, call me when you're suicidal. All right.
Sure.
That's way too late. That's over here, right? And
Yeah.
the bad perspective, when you have a bad perspective, that is what evolves to becoming that suicidal tendency. And to me, like, you have to get them here, here, and here. What I like about films is, you know, they're inspirational, especially when they're inspirational. Whether it's a documentary that shows some kind of adversity or struggle, challenge. Actually, I tell people all the time, it's impossible to live life to the fullest, and the struggles actually makes your life interesting. And I'm like, I challenge you to find me a movie without any conflict, struggle, or challenge. Like, it doesn't exist, because that's not a movie. Right? That's actually a required thing to make it interesting. So I tell them, like, no, you don't understand. Like, that's actually what it comes with. Like, if everyone just had a great life and that's it, and no struggle, nothing, is like, no,
Yeah.
it seems weird. It's kind of like this. Like, you know, we were talking about superheroes, right? That's like Superman not having kryptonite. I don't know if you're going to watch a movie, because you know exactly what's going to happen. He's going to sit there drinking coffee and beating all the villains. Like,
There has to be something.
right? So when did you, so I know, let's talk about your past. Like, where were you at as far as your mindset was growing up? Because you said you kind of were, you know, you had to learn to embrace yourself. Like, what was your mindset? Because what I like to do is bring people along your journey, right? So like, because people might have the same mindset that you used to have, right? So let's talk about that real quick.
That's part of filmmaking too. So I totally understand. So back when I was a kid, my dad is from Scotland. Okay.
Okay.
So I did not have the same kind of upbringing that a typical American parent would have. And so my mom is American, but like she is also from a small town. So I had a very unique upbringing, and I look different. I'm kind of not the typical looking kid in my class. And so growing up, I was always one of the kind of outcasts of the cat. I was a nerd. It wasn't cool to be a nerd back then.
Back then, yeah, kids don't know that right now.
Yeah, and so I was into like these like anime TV shows when I was in like first grade.
Yeah.
And other kids were like playing basketball at recess, and we were playing spaceships and stuff like that. So we were the nerdy kids, and you know, like that just stuck the whole time growing up. I ended up being into like pro wrestling, and you know, it's the same thing. We're like playing pro wrestling, and they're like playing basketball, and they're So and also being my dad's from Scotland, the sport that I played was soccer. And so like none of the kids played soccer. at
Mhm.
my school, that was like a nerdy sport, you
Oh,
know?
weird. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And back
Weird.
then, it was different in America. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know that we even had any sort of leagues. Like, it was really,
It
really,
wasn't as crazy now. Definitely
yeah, we
not.
got a little bit of something now. It's still not quite like Europe, but it's something. Um,
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
so anyway, like, I was an outcast, and
Mm.
I, I saw the other kids in school, and, they were having like friends and fun times, and they were making fun of me, and they were
Yeah.
feeling good in my eyes. I didn't know what their home lives were like, of course,
Yeah. Right.
but
Right.
uh, what I saw was these kids have it all, and I have nothing. Like,
Right.
very little in comparison to them. And granted, my parents tried to give me a lot of stuff, so I wasn't like totally without. But
Mhm.
like, I remember pretty young, some kids making comments about my shoes, and me realizing like, oh, like, I don't have like designer shoes or something. I didn't know
Yeah.
that
Right.
even a thing.
Right.
But as
Right.
soon as they like made fun of me, then it was kind of a thing. And
Yeah.
you just kind of learn to see yourself in the way that other people are presenting you, like they see you.
Yeah.
So obviously now I see myself maybe that way. And it
Yeah.
took me a long time before I started kind of like not liking the being part of the mainstream.
Of
And
course.
I was always into these strange things, and it was always part of me, but I didn't realize that I should embrace that, and
Yeah.
celebrate it rather than try to be like them, and
Right.
change my personality so that I could be more the way that it seems like what other people want my personality to be like, or
Yeah.
something like that.
Well, and that's what's good with, going to school, right? These are the things that you learn as a person to build your character, because that's the beginning of your adversity, right? You're trying to kind of connect. You're trying to figure out what's going on. So basically, obviously today people are it's like a big deal for people now talking about bullying, like
Sure.
bullying is a thing. And one of the things I always tell people is like, well, if you want to uh, find the solutions, you have to stop trying to remedy the results. You have to remedy the cause. The
Hmm.
bullies are just the results, but they're not just bullies to be bullies. Like, what's the cause of it? And almost all the freaking time, it's always something at home. Because I'm sure you knew the biggest kids in school, but they're the ones who didn't bully you. Why not? They were the best ones, right? So we have to figure out, like, why weren't they the bullies? Why is it this little bastard over here that's so loud in every class and that's always getting into trouble and this and that? Like, why him? But he's not even that big. And almost all the time, like you said before, I like that you said, like, well, I don't know what they're going through, and
Yep.
they're just messing around with me, like, I don't know. At the same time, they don't know what you're going through. But most of the time, it's the upbringing, right? It's the
Oh,
type of
absolutely.
kids that are being brought up. Like, you didn't really teach your kids to respect other kids, huh? Like, and so that's what's always happening. So I always tell people, like, you got to look for the cause. So one of the things I always see, like, so when you have that mindset, right? When you're in high school, and I mean, when I hear suicide in high school or even younger,
Hmm.
it's so freaking sad because you're just like, dude, high school is a glimpse, man. Like, it's a glimpse. It is so tiny. You'll
And,
forget what happened. You're like, what? You're in my class? Oh, dude, my bad. I don't remember.
and
And
there's a
it's
lot
so
of good
sad.
too. It's very easy to focus on the bad.
Right, right. And one of the biggest things that I learned was that all of our emotions, whether it's sad, depression, or even happiness, are actually based on your future thoughts, not
Hmm.
your past. The past are just things that you learn from. The future is what guides you. So when you see a miserable future, all your thoughts go that way. Basically, your perspectives, right?
Hmm.
When your perspective is on a negative future, that's when you really truly get sad.
Right.
At what point in your life, because obviously there was like a turning point kind of for you where you started seeing life a little bit differently. You're just like, hey, I see a more successful route here. And that's what really makes you change, man. Right? So was there a certain point?
Yeah. So I've had a lot of ups and downs. So
That
I
always happens.
yeah, right. So I have kind of I think a very unique perspective on this, and that I feel like where I'm at now, I like to point out this story where a lot of child stars kind of go through this, where
Okay.
they have achieved their life's greatest achievements at like 7 years old, at like a very, very young age. And it's really easy for them to get into the perspective down the line where they're like, I'm never going to eclipse this achievement from my past, and everything in a way for them is now somehow downhill. Could be glorious for somebody else, but to them, their thinking is, okay, I peaked, and now it's all downhill. And
that's right.
Real easy to get on the negative thinking of like, so let's say that's true. You have to find some sort of way to live in that downhill and still be happy, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I feel like I'm at now, where you just have, it's like you said, you have to kind of focus on the perspective. This is something that kind of came up in one of our films. We're doing a film about mindfulness, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
A lot of people think, oh, woo woo, it's this, it's religious thing, it's that. For me, sorry, what it was really just kind of becoming aware of your thoughts and being conscious of like kind of where they're going, and then having the ability to change that direction. And there's all kinds of ways, like a lot of it is meditation, but like for me, that's not what I do. So kind of what you were talking about, when did I change? So in high school, I started smoking cannabis. Okay. And I was the nerdy kid, up until a certain point where I just started kind of being rebellious, against my parents mostly. And through that, there was a little bit of a rejection time where like, so you're showing up at school, you got like the clothes your parents are dressing you in. And then at some point you start to try and like create your own identity. So I'm going to start trying to dress in the clothes I want to wear. And maybe like either your parents are getting those for you, or you're trying to like figure it out with what you got. And there's some forgiveness in there where like people maybe that are on the same page as you understand what you're going through, but there's also some no forgiveness where you're like, oh, you're a fraud, you're this nerdy kid, and now you're showing like this isn't you. And so
I don't really hear the word poser so much nowadays.
That's the word. Back in my day, that was the word.
Right, that was huge. Right.
And so like there's that transition of like where you're creating your own identity, and is this really you, or are you like trying to like be a character that you want to be? And eventually you're gonna figure out who you are, and this person, you're either going to be presenting this person authentically, or you're going to be presenting some sort of character that you think people want. Some people go through their whole life.
Yeah, well, what's funny is, speaking of identities, right? And the problem is like, it's almost like we've been conditioned to think that our identities are because of who we were from the past, right? That's what they think. Well, I was this, I was a drug abuser, so I was a stripper, so I guess that's it. I'm a freaking stripper. And it's like, actually, that's not the case. The identity, who you are, is actually who you want to become. And that's actually what is more important. But I'm hoping you learn from your past. So what I tell people all the time is that the future is meant to guide you. The past is meant to learn from. But the present, the reason it's so valuable is because that's where you execute. You combine both of them. Because if you don't know where the hell you're going, I tell people, when you're lost, like, where the fuck are you going? Like, you're always going to be lost. Like, it doesn't matter if you make a left or a right. Where are you going? If you don't know, you're lost the whole time. So it doesn't matter if it's the scenic route or whatever else. And then you have to learn from your past. Whatever happened in the past, you have to learn from that, or else you're always going to make mistakes, So that's very important. So as far as identity, you really, it's so hard to emphasize to people. It's like, it's really where you think, who you think you're going to become. Because we're constantly changing. Dude, guys, the Jeremy we're seeing right now was not the same Jeremy 10 years ago.
Right.
And I'm telling you right now, Jeremy 10 years from now is not this dude we're talking to today. Guarantee it. Guarantee it. Especially when you're in the zone, right? Mm-hmm. So the ones that are that hit trauma, they become very fixated in this certain identity, and they fixate themselves. So they don't have this growth mindset. They end up saying like, well, I'm an introvert, so I only read books and stay at home. It's like, you told you that. You told you that because you never look at the times when you went up on stage and sang karaoke. That's very extrovert style, dude. You didn't think about how you approached this chick this one time, because those are little, you think like, yeah, but that's not me. That was out of the, ordinary. And it's like, but yeah, so it's only because you keep limiting yourself on it. Elon Musk, you can tell the dude's an introvert, but he's in the news every time. He's talking to people all the time. And this is where I'm going towards, where I'm going is because you really have to change to really work on your perspectives. It really, it's all about the purpose. That's where it starts. Mm-hmm. I've thought about this, I've learned, and then I'm just like, you know what? You can change your perspective all the time, but how are you going to know if it's a threat or a benefit unless you have a purpose? It's how I tell people to understand that is, when people are always lost, they're driving. To me, I always say like, dude, so basically when you're driving, when you get lost, you just put it in park. That's it. And then you just basically go, I'm lost. I'm lost. Are you trying to figure out where you're going? But more importantly, I tell them is, why are you going? Because if you're going there to celebrate your best friend's wedding, I'm pretty sure you're going to have more perseverance, adversity, and going through adversity, all that stuff, right? Because you know why you have to go. Well, because my aunt has cancer and I have to go to her. So that's a huge, huge purpose, because that's what's going to make you kind of, pull through, right? And so without the purpose, your perspective, you're not going to know, well, is it a threat or a benefit to your purpose? Like, yeah, it's nice if you have a perspective like, hey, let's check out the scenic route. Yeah, but dude, your aunt is waiting for you, man. Like, so is that a threat or a benefit to your purpose? Like, yeah, it's a threat, dude. So yeah, right at this time, you can't be doing this dilly-dallying. So it's very important to have that purpose. And it's just that people don't freaking know how to create a purpose.
Right.
And there's two major things that I've seen. Number one, it has to be a verb, right? It can't be to be the best filmmaker. Well, all right, now you're a filmmaker. Like, that's not a purpose at all. Because the second thing is, not only does it have to be a verb, it has to benefit other people, not yourself. Because if it's only benefiting you, like, dude, I want to be the best filmmaker so I can be a millionaire.
Right.
Yeah, that's not a purpose. You're not serving anyone at all. Right. And so when people don't, and people are like, what? So I don't know, where do I start? How the fuck can you help people? That's where you start. Yeah. How can you help people? Is it carrying the groceries for this old lady? Then you become freaking DoorDash as you keep on going. Yeah. Right. Are you trying to connect people here? Well, then you become Facebook trying to connect the world. Like, that's what ends up happening. Was there a sense of time when you just kind of started developing this sense of purpose? Because every time, because the beauty with purpose, it doesn't care how hard things are or how pleasurable they are. You do it because of the purpose, and you seem to look like film got you. So tell me what kind of purpose kind of got instilled?
So growing up and having it hard, that was something that was always kind of part of me. And I was, at a young age, I would work at the soup kitchen at our church and, give out homeless people soup.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was like a nerd. Like, I was young, and the cool kids, they never did that, for sure. You know? So
it was a dorky thing to do, to be given.
Yeah, and I was always that kind of a kid, and I always did things. I was in the Boy Scouts, and that was kind of a part of the Boy Scouts. It's just a fundamental thing, and I'm not a big fan of religion now, but I will say, in defense of it, that it does create great morals for you as a child, and like learning right from wrong young.
Right.
I learned a lot of that through kind of this religious and just moral kind of upbringing that my parents instilled in me, and that I learned. Also, it was the time there was a Just Say No campaign on TV, and it was a very wholesome time for television and just the world. So I grew up in that, and it stuck to me.
Yeah.
And so like I did notice though through my journey in cannabis specifically, and I also noticed this in martial arts, you would encounter people like, granted, there are the hero people that are just super successful. They have money. They're living some sort of wild rock star lifestyle. It seems glorious, and of course, everybody wants to be those. It seems great, right?
Right.
But there's also people who they might not have had the success or something, or maybe they had the success and it's over now, but they've got something that's kind of like beyond that, where they're helping people, they're teaching like children or something. They are, medically helping people that are sick, all of this stuff. And it's maybe therapeutically helping people that are just troubled, but then they're able to kind of find some sort of, alternative treatment through this other path. It's all this wonderful thing. And for cannabis, like, there's the recreational side of cannabis where you're getting high and it's like this fun thing. And like, that's great. But then there are the people that you meet that this is their medicine. They don't even really get high at all.
They don't,
This is a serious issue. And then they have all these like hard struggles because of the laws, because of this.
Dude, yeah. And so, like, let's go into that. I'm 46. I don't know how old you are, but
I'm 43.
So we're pretty much in that same generation, right? It was all about like basically mentioning that weed is the gateway drug or whatever. It's just like, no, it isn't. Because I've seen so many people just quit just like this. And I'm talking smoked like crazy and quit nothing. And typically some people that do that don't go to the next level of drugs. They just don't. Why not? Because you have to have your argument solid for me to believe you. And most of the time, it all stems from your perspective. What was your perspective? Because it was your mindset at the time. And I feel bad for people that blame alcohol, that blame the drugs. I'm like, dude, it's you, dude. It's not the drugs, man.
There's personal responsibility, and it's so much easier to create a scapegoat, to just be like,
exactly,
I'm this way. I'm suffering from some sort of disease that I can't overcome. Like, there's all excuses. It's so much easier to just be a victim.
Right. And so this is one of the biggest things I've learned also. So when it comes to being in a bad mindset, I've learned that people love excuses and hate accountability. We all do it. I do it when I'm in a shitty mood. It's never my fault, dude. It's never my fault. So we just tend to do that. And here's my freaking problem. Because they're already in a negative mindset and they want to attach to any excuse, what sucks is we're giving them the best excuse. Dude, it's not you, it's the alcohol.
Right.
Dude, it's the drugs. It's very addictive. It's not because of your bonding experience that you can't bond with anyone, so you ended up bonding with this. It's not that at all. It's not because you're trapped in this old identity of yourself and you think you can't get out. And so these things we're feeding them. We're telling them. Doctors are telling them this.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Society is telling them this. Organizations are telling them this. So let me just tell you how many people I've talked to and just go, I never actually thought of it that way. And which is awesome because it's changing the perspective. I always say depression and anxiety. And what's funny is those are just emotions, right? Emotional responses. Those are just two of our emotions. I feel like, why do you focus so much on those two? Is it because that's what sells more? I don't know. But no matter what, those are just emotional responses. What is causing you to become depressed? Because it's not because, Jeremy got depression. Oh, dude, that sucks, man. Where'd you get it? Oh, some bar. Well, it looks like you're going to be depressed for a month. Now you're not going to forgive your dad. Like, that's not how it happens.
Yeah,
It's because your perspective is, well, my dad's the only person that can ever make me feel proud. So now I'm depressed because I can't do that.
Sure.
And now I'm in depression.
Sure.
But, right? And they're
Yeah.
always telling you in reverse, because I've never heard anyone say, oh, dude, Jeremy, I feel bad for you. I've been dealing with happiness for like 20 years. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
I got a couple things to say. So
Yeah.
First, I want a disclaimer. Like, of course, there are people who suffer from diseases, and it is not.
Of course, right? Yeah, let's get that out there now.
Well, I totally understand, and it is
Right.
terrible, and I, what a horrible struggle.
Yeah.
However, not everybody is that, and maybe even some of those times, there's ways you can overcome some of this stuff, and there's personal responsibility. There's going to be uncomfortable moments, like you were saying before, like to get out of a situation, of a routine, you're going to have to step away from the comfort zone, and you're going to have to do something uncomfortable. And how uncomfortable? Well, you're the judge of that. But you can start that small and then work up to maybe something bigger down the line. And that's a great way of overcoming a lot of big obstacles. But there's going to be that moment. And so one of the things that we kind of learned about when I was doing the mindfulness thing is that so you also have to forgive yourself. We are humans, right? And human beings have a negativity bias. It comes from the years and years of us being like nomads, like cavemen, having to be extremely cautious about our environment, about what dangers are out there. And so you're constantly assessing what could be something that prevents me from surviving. And so that negativity bias and that desire to be part of a group, that's all built into your brain. And, it's part of being a human, and having that fear associated with that negativity also, that's all part of just natural life. So being aware that you have that is the first step. Then when you kind of see it coming up in your thoughts, you can maybe change that thought. One of the things that I do is I just try to think of things that make me grateful. I try to think of people that I wish kindness upon. And granted, I'm not doing the full-on meditation practice, but just having that kind of change of like, okay, I'm thinking something negative and I'm starting to get upset. And why am I thinking that on a hike in the forest? Like, nah, I'm going to start thinking about something else. I'm in control of my own thoughts. Done.
Right. And that's always the case. So, when you said before, like, the disclaimer or whatever, at the same time, I'm just like, dude, the one thing that I have to argue for is like, what hurts more? Telling people, oh, dude, you're one of those that it's not your fault, dude.
Sure.
Or, yo, let me give you some hope. Is that cool? Because which one is better? No hope or hope? Because that's why people suffer from depression rather than struggling. Because when you struggle, it's like a marathon runner knowing there's a finish line, but you're struggling to get there. You're struggling for his final exam because you're trying to accomplish something. Suffering means you're in jail and you can't do shit.
Right.
And that's what we're telling people, like, oh, dude, there's nothing you can do about it. It's chemical imbalance, bro.
It's the filmmaker in me. I had to have the disclaimer.
Yeah, I know. But I just want to tell the audience here that's attaching to that excuse and going like, yeah, I'm one of those. It's and to me, it's like when they say chemical imbalance, the first thing is like, oh, how do you know that? Did you get it checked, or you're just going with what you heard and you said you're one of them? Like, you might want to get your chemicals checked then, right? And most likely it's not. But the problem is this. It's what the sample is about, right? Because they're saying like, yeah, but people with depression have chemical imbalance.
Yeah, even if you are one of those people, take that step. You're not going to.
Yeah, but no matter what, though, the test itself sucks, because that's like saying like, yo, studies show people that are obese don't work out as much.
Man, you got to take the step. You got to, no matter what's wrong with you, you got to try.
Right. And that's why we called it Start Day One, because people get so overwhelmed with how much they need to change, but really they just don't know where to start. That's why we start day one. That means there's a day 2, day 3, day 4. I'm not telling you to be freaking not drinking alcohol tomorrow and then counting every alcohol you didn't have, because you are just making yourself so miserable. So miserable. And it's only because you didn't have a sense of purpose. You're looking at all the obstacles rather than looking at your own path. People that quit, it's not because, oh my God, I'm going to try and quit so hard. Like, dude, it's because they have such a different purpose that it's like, I'm not going to accomplish my purpose if I take that. Like, I can't help people with when I'm fucked up. Like, it's not going to work. And so, I just wanted to kind of put that out there. So, and then you mentioned before, and I've learned too, like the two major things is freaking forgiveness, right? Harder one is forgiving ourselves. And what's funny is I have a clothing line, it's Fuki Clothing, and our mission is to inspire and motivate people to make the decision to live life without regret and accept challenges worth the risk. And I kind of looked like, can you live life without regret, dude? And because I was like, I've had some regrets, like I should have done more programming earlier. I should have done this, coulda, woulda, shouldas, right? And what I learned was the secret to that was forgiveness. All regret are personal experiences you never forgave yourself for. That is it. You coulda, woulda, shoulda, Jeremy. You fucking did it.
Like in mindfulness, so it's not a bad thing to recognize those thoughts, to have that.
No, not at all.
You have, maybe I should have done something better. But then you let that thought pass and you just move right on. Okay,
right.
Do better in the future. I'm done with that.
That's right. And then one of the misconceptions too, people always say, think positive.
Yeah.
So I have to tell people the difference here. There's a difference between changing your perspective and being positive, negative.
Right.
Because if your perspective is a threat to your purpose, it doesn't matter if you think positive or negative about it, because no matter freaking what, that perspective is negative. Right? Or not a negative, but like it's a threat to your purpose. What I've been using a lot is basically if daddy's the only one that can make you feel worthy, it doesn't matter how positive you think about, but the next match, I'm going to prove myself. The next soccer meet, that's when I win and prove to my dad that I'm the shit. Yeah. That's thinking positive, but your perspective sucks.
Tied into confidence. That goes to emotion. It's also tied into confidence.
Okay.
Being okay with wherever you are at, maybe you're the best, but maybe you're just in the journey, but like having that confidence of, kind of being okay with who you are and, feeling like I know what to do. That kind of thing is so important in being positive.
But the thing with confidence, people don't know this either. Confidence is the result. You don't start something because you're confident. Like, dude, you can't talk to a bunch of people and build your confidence first and then talk to a lot of people all the time. What you do is you talk to the fucking people all the time and all of a sudden you build your confidence.
Yeah, you do that uncomfortable thing. You take yourself out of the
zone. That's right.
In doing that, you get confidence. Like,
that's right. Again, it's the result. Just like happiness is a result. People think like, that are depressed. They have this like challenge, like, I can't seem to like. What do you think? People that are happy never get depressed if someone passes away or something? Or if they go through a divorce?
When you're upset, hearing somebody say, well, you just have to like think better, it sucks because you're in that moment of feeling terrible. But you have to find something that you can make progress on. And that progress gives you a little bit to get to the next step. And the more you make progress,
that's right,
the more you'll be okay.
Right. But the problem with that also is, when you're talking about that, what I've seen is I don't know if this is the difference between inspiration and motivation. Basically, you're talking about motivation. You cannot motivate someone before a decision, before a perspective has been changed.
Yeah.
And let me kind of tell you my formula that's been consistent with everyone I've talked to, everything I've experienced. So everything starts off with purpose, right? And then you develop the perspectives, whether it's a threat or a benefit to that. If you can't shift it to the beneficial perspective, that's when you need inspiration. You got to watch Jeremy's movie real quick, because inspiration is what shifts your perspective from one way to another. And the difference between inspiration and motivation also is that inspiration, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just exposing you to it.
Right.
That's and then what's that?
About the films, because when you sit down to watch them, a lot of times it's coming at you from left field. You don't have a negativity bias, like watching it, like I don't like this or something.
Right. And that's why I say that's an inspiration. Inspiration shifts your perspectives, your movies while you're watching, and then you relate and you go, oh, dude, I'm that's me. All of a sudden you relate. So once you have that, that's why I always talk about the perspectives, because the decisions always follow your perspectives. If you thought yourself, dude, that girl's never going to be able, I'm a dork. This is how I'm going to be. I can't get to that girl. Well, that's your perspective. It's your assumption, and you're just assuming that. But if you can shift your perspective and go like, well, maybe I can learn something and see what I can do. Do I need to get new shoes or some shit? So you go up there. I mean, at least you learn something. But it depends on your perspective. Yeah. So anyway, once you change the perspective, the decisions follow, right? Yeah. That is the only time motivation comes in. It's after the decision. That's where goals come from. Every freaking action you take is because there's a goal. Every action. Doesn't matter. It could be freaking dilly-dallying. It could be freaking smoking weed, watching freaking Half-Baked. Like, dude, it's because you want to chill, you relax. There's always a freaking goal.
Yeah, we call it hero journey in film. And generally in the hero journey, you've seen it a million times in the film. There's like an epic pitfall. Like a lowest moment type of scene where it changes the perspective, where the character is, I'm not going to be this way anymore.
That's right.
The result of my actions, I've got to change the way that
That's right.
All that is part of
that's right. Yeah. And that's what's interesting. When I was talking to you the first time, I was like, oh, dude, it's perfect. It's because people have to see this, and you have to think about the ending. Or else the beginning, it's like, dude, if I took out this part of the movie and all you saw was the ending and they were awesome, it's not as interesting. You didn't see the struggle. You didn't see Superman get kryptonite. Like, you didn't see anything at all. So it doesn't become that, right? And so I like the whole journey of it, the way it's kind of coming along like that. And, it's so tough when we're just telling people. Again, it's always comes down to perspective. If you can look at every motivational speaker, you can look at whoever changed, basically. It's always their perspective that changed. And that's what books do, right? You don't eat the book and feel better, right? So so those are the things that I kind of emphasize on. So was there, now that we're talking about like the changes, the transformation and stuff, what was the biggest transformation that you kind of experienced that made you go, because you were like partying like rock star style, because you're like, yeah, dude, I'm killing it, or whatever it is. So your mindset was all over the place. Even though you were happy, you weren't actually fulfilled, right? So what was the I guess the perspective shift?
Where all of a sudden, my dogs are barking a little bit.
Oh, that's right. It's all good.
So I've had a couple of those moments. So when I was first selling weed, I made a lot of money. And then I started encountering these situations where I would get robbed. And it would be like colossal like downfall to where it would like coming back from it was extremely difficult. And there was this mental journey every single time where you're like, am I going to keep doing this? Like, and eventually I made that decision. Like, no, I'm not going to do this. I got to do something else, So like there are these points and they come up kind of often. The absolute biggest one for me would be when I was in the cannabis industry and I was throwing these events, and I would have people coming up to me and they would say, oh, you're my hero. They would tell me like, oh, you're a legend in my home. Like there's all this super ego stroking stuff that people were saying. They give me presents and like all this stuff. I'm like a celebrity. And like you said, a rock star lifestyle in many ways. Like, I'm traveling all around the country and I'm throwing these hash competitions that are illegal, legal. It's hard to right. So, and I'm like, I threw one in Spain. I threw one in Amsterdam, and like,
sick.
And Amsterdam specifically was a place when I was young, I was going there to the Cannabis Cup and I was just a fan. I was absolutely no one, just at the event. All these people were celebrities and, they were like heroes to me. I go to throw my event and they're like giving me stuff and like treating me nice. And it's like, whoa, it's really, really easy to get caught up in that. And when it
Mhm.
stopped happening, that there, like, I even knew going in, I'm like, eventually this is going to end. But when it actually started happening, it's an extreme difficult situation mentally.
Yeah.
You start seeing yourself as like worthless, oh, nobody cares
Yeah.
about me. And like, just the thought, it's kind of like how trauma is built, is like these little bad thoughts about yourself that just kind of
Mhm.
keep coming up for whatever reason. uh,
Mhm.
they reinforce this negative perspective of yourself. And
Yeah.
so I start kind of going down this path of like, well, I'm never going to be that guy again, like,
Yeah.
what am I going to do? Do I want to do these other things? Like, am I going to take this other job just to get some money? Like, it's a really difficult moment. And me being the
Yeah.
type of person that I am, I'm an artist. Like, I want to do these other kind of really odd things. I'm, different than everybody else. I want to have these different journeys. I'm not
Yeah.
afraid to take risks. There's this struggle, where you're like trying to figure out what direction am I going to go in. You know,
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
I want to take this safe life and get money and just kind of be more, uh, progressive in that way? Or do I want
Right.
to go back to the drawing board and like do some other crazy thing? And
Right.
looking is that thing for me. It opened another door. Like, I was able to figure it out, and then here I am. And some of our friends
Right.
have done well, but I'm not rich from this. Like,
Yeah.
I could be doing something else and maybe be making more money.
Yeah.
But this is what we do, and I
Yeah.
really help people, and that's really, really gratifying.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
And it just goes back again to that sense of purpose. Again, one of the major, characteristics of a purpose is that it benefits others. And one of the best ways to feel good is giving. It's
yeah,
either
absolutely.
progress with your purpose, or giving. Those are the two major things. As long as you're making that progress, you feel good. I used to skate, like getting that next trick, like, sick, next
Yep.
trick, next trick.
So now,
And
instead of people coming up to me and saying, "You're my hero," or "You're a legend," or whatever,
yeah,
they come up to me and they say, "Thank you. You helped me."
awesome.
And,
Oh, that's right here, right?
anybody can
That's
do
right
that.
here.
Anybody.
Yeah. And that's actually one of the things that kind of kept me going with my clothing line and, doing Start Day One, is because of the people that kept telling me, like, yo, this is awesome. Like, you've really helped me out. Like, I love what you're doing, man. Like, this is awesome. This one guy, Kyle, I don't know if he's watching, dude. He didn't tell me for freaking, I don't even know how long. I've met him through Instagram or whatever. And then he just starts telling me, like, oh, dude, you saved my life. And I'm like, the fuck you talking about? He's like, oh, I was suicidal one night and this and that, just feeling like crap, and I saw your apparel on my dresser. And because of what we're about and we're reminding people, he was just like, dude, yeah, it works. And I'm like, I tell people this all the time, like, yeah, that's exactly what it does. And so it helps. And there's this other person. I knew him for probably like 2 years. All of a sudden, he's like, yo, dude, check it out. He's got Fukin on the freaking forearm. And I'm going, like,
Oh,
yo, what is that? He goes,
right.
dude, you saved my life, dude. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was suicidal when I met you, but just hanging around you and you with your brand, what you're talking about, and telling people live life and stop worrying this and that. It just, you saved my life. And I'm like, whoa. That's why we started Start Day One, because what I realized from that was the proactive approach. Everyone is being reactive and always waiting. In fact, I was on a podcast yesterday, and I was telling them, yeah, you have to be proactive. So when do you start seeing the signs then before they even get suicidal? I'm like, dude, I just said you have to be proactive. You do it to do it. You're still looking for symptoms. You're still looking for signs. Do I have to tell your kid that, do I have to see that they're eating candy before I tell them, hey, don't eat so much candy? Like, you tell them right now and give them the habit, yo, you're going to get diabetes. So can you please do not eat all the freaking Halloween candy? That's proactive. And I'm just like, what are you waiting for? So you're going to wait for your kid not to come out of his room to go to the park? Is that what you're going to do? Because he's still coming out. Oh, he's fine. That's not proactive. Proactive is like, hey, kid, want to go out to the park? I know you're happy as hell today. So I relate it to like physical health. I don't know why they can't seem to like do the same thing. And I'm like, the best time to go to the gym is today, not 2 pounds over, 5 pounds. But you're telling me, hey, Jeremy, call me when you're 500 pounds and then we'll go to the gym. And that's what they do with suicide prevention. That's what they call suicide prevention. I mean, this is the most common way of prevention. Call me. Like, what? That's not how it works. So so what I've realized with prevention is that proactivity is awesome for prevention, right? You cannot prevent any problem without being proactive. I challenge you to prevent obesity and do nothing proactive. I challenge you to prevent diabetes, but do not do anything proactive. Eat all the freaking sugar as much as possible. And I want to see what the hell happens. So just by saying that, the best thing about being proactive, not only for prevention, for prediction. I bet that if you eat crap every day, you're going to be obese. I bet that if you eat candy every day, that you're going to get diabetes. I bet if I kicked your ass every day since you were 5 until you're 18 and told you you were a loser, I'm going to guarantee you're going to have some mental health issues. Like guaranteed. Not even a maybe. And so those are the things I'm telling. And it's weird because this is just common sense. But it's so hard because everyone has been instilled these excuses that it's not their fault, that it's external, but I'm just like, yeah, but those are just the results. Why are we not talking about the cause of these things? Like, I get that the pills artificially change your chemical imbalance. I get that they work, but alcohol works as well too. They forget all of their problems. It's just that kind of fucks you up. That's the only difference, but it's more fun. That's why more people kind of tend to go towards that route. So those are the kind of things I talk about. But you seem to have a lot of knowledge of the cannabis. And I know it helps people with mental health issues. Can you give me like stories or like kind of some knowledge? Drop the knowledge, man.
Yeah. I mean, well, doing our films, we had a few different stories that were specifically about cannabis and cancer. And then there was also a real good story about a person that had dementia that started using cannabis. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, I like that one because that one's the polar opposite. You think, oh, this person has dementia. They're going to have and that's the movie about cannabis and cancer. So this person with dementia, you don't want to use cannabis if you have dementia. You already aren't thinking clearly. You're having struggle with your mind. Cannabis is not going to help that be more clear. But in fact, that is exactly what happens. And cannabis is to be far more functionally able and far more clear thinking. It seems to kind of change how it works with everything.
Yeah, I mean, every time I hear about cannabis, dude, it's just this freaking magical plant every time. I mean, it cures cancer, it cures this, it does this, it does this, it does this. And you're just like, what the hell's going on here? And again, it's because when we were growing up, it's the gateway drug and all this stuff. And it's just like,
we call it the exit drug.
The what?
We call it the exit drug. There's a doctor I know called Dr. Uma, and she kind of coined this phrase. And cannabis is the exit drug from pharmaceuticals and other hard drugs.
That's true. That's true. I've heard that as a case as well.
Very, very effective to use cannabis to get off of other more serious drugs.
Yeah. I've heard that, or at least read it in different places. And it's funny that is it now more common? I don't know. To actually give that to people more than pharmaceutical stuff?
So no. This is the big problem with cannabis as medicine, is that it's still a Schedule I drug. So to our government, cannabis has no medicinal value. That's what Schedule I means. So anybody, even if you're against cannabis,
that's crazy.
Oh, it at least causes appetite stimulation. That's a medical cause. That should change the scheduling of it. We think it should be Schedule III, but right now it's Schedule I. So you can't test it. All kinds of like horrible things about it being a Schedule. And so doctors also can't prescribe it. The best thing they
That
can do
is,
right now is say, you should use cannabis. And then that's
yeah,
part of what's in our movie is that that's where it stops for doctors. They don't have
yeah,
any sort of knowledge. They don't have a real incentive to learn about cannabis as medicine. A lot of them have this same reefer madness kind of perspective.
yeah,
Where
yeah, right,
it's
right.
not
That's
real,
like
it's
kind of,
pseudoscience. This is just placebo effect. These people aren't really
right.
anything other than therapy, like feeling good from cannabis. And
And you know,
that's not the
that,
case.
yeah, and that's kind of what I'm kind of, this push would start day one for a nonprofit. Again, it's about changing perspectives, right? On a personal level, that's how people can get help. But at the same time, I think at the macro level, just the perspective on mental health itself is so important, because I feel it's the same thing with what's happening with, on the physical level to the mental level. It's just like, dude, why are we feeding them all these kind of excuses to not do it? Let me just talk to you about the chemical imbalance, right? So this is what I've learned, because it's one of the greatest excuses that everyone have always uses for their depression. And I don't know why they never talk about this, about anger, envy, happiness. It's just depression and anxiety. Those are the only two emotions people feel nowadays. And what's funny is everyone's trying to get rid of these emotions. So when people tell me like, oh, dude, I've had depression for 16 years. Wait, how old are you? So you found out at 18 what depression was? Stop. Like, so that's the only time you knew what that emotion was. So that was just a result. Obviously, something freaking happened that made you depressed. But no matter what, it's that notion that it's always the result. So anyway, when I talk to people with, when it comes to a chemical imbalance, I always tell them like, well, you're under the notion that chemical imbalance is the cause, not the result. Because what I've read is that what you said before, and I actually forgot to mention this, it's because of the way our human nature has been about the fight or flight system, right? It's the cortisol that it pumps out because, dude, Jeremy, there's fucking lion. The problem is there's no lion, but our brain doesn't know the difference between lion or that guy's making fun of me. It doesn't know. It has no clue what the threat is. It just goes like, yo, survival. You got to run away from this, dude. There's going to be a fight. There's going to be an argument. You don't want that. So make sure you're clear. But what, as human beings today, after the argument, after the bullying, it sticks on. Man, I'm going to be this. Man, I'm going to be this. And so cortisol, depression. So when you're getting pumped all this, it's not because of the cortisol, now you're depressed. It's because you're depressed. That's why there's cortisol. That's why the chemical imbalance is happening.
A lot of it I've also seen is dietary. And I've seen some pretty incredible things happen from like really restricted
I've been hearing that. More and more as I talk to people that the certain diet actually affects their mindset. So I haven't learned enough about that. So, but that's a big thing we have to really get rid of, because I had an argument with a life coach, and he said, because she was going through episodes of depression still, and I'm like, oh, you're coaching people? That's not good, man. But anyway,
I feel the exact I have this conversation with a very specific friend of mine where like she would take pills for her anxiety attacks, and I'm like, how about you get off those pills? And like, I have anxiety, but I don't take pills. What I do is I try and deal with it like, it's a struggle. Dude, it's not a wonderful.
It's your perspective. Anxiety, fear, happiness, based on your future mindset. Whatever's going to happen in the future.
Diet. She ended up having to get on a strict diet because of her heart, and then all of a sudden, these anxiety things went away.
Just kind of went away. That's weird, huh?
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting. See, now that becomes the reversal. But so, everyone's like, getting caught up on all these different excuses. Like the thing is, you got to do something about it. Why are people with cancer fighting cancer more than you're fighting depression? Like you've made depression like the most worst thing that can happen to anybody, worse than cancer. So I tell people that talk about chemical imbalance, this and that, and I'm just like, does everyone with cancer die? And they
No,
always
no.
say no. And I go, why not? Because why the fuck are you scared then? When you get cancer, I mean, it's the end of the world. Like, I mean, that's stress, dude.
Oh
I
yeah.
have cancer, right? So if they don't all die, then what are you afraid of, right? And
Mhm.
why do they survive? So I tell them the common denominator is because they decided to go against it.
Yeah.
They
So
said, I'm going to get better.
I had a basal cell carcinoma. It's the skin cancer. It's the least
No way.
threatening one, but I had it, and there was a moment there where I was like, okay, I've had this. I've had it for a long time. Like,
Yeah.
did I screw up, and now I'm gonna like suffer from this? And you just mentally got to get to a point where you're like, I'm gonna take care of this as best as I can.
That's
And
right.
I'm gonna keep living life, and I'm gonna do the best that I can in life. And if
Boom.
it keeps
And
coming
that,
up,
ladies and
I'm gonna address
gentlemen,
it. That's it.
and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the perspective shift. And then the decision came to better his freaking life. And guess what happens? His diet changed, his lifestyle changed. And the decisions, once you make the decision, people think you have to find the solutions and then decide, well, what's the cure for cancer? And then I'll eat better. It's like, dude, if you decide, you're going to find those solutions. And that's what always, always happens. And so that's the process every freaking time. Every time it's consistent, dude. And so once you decide, so when people complain to me about chemical imbalance, dude, that's cute. What are you going to do about it? What
Yeah.
are you doing about it? Because all you're doing is complaining. I've got cancer. I've got cancer. I've got cancer. Well, what are you doing about it, dude?
And I
Of
also
course you're not
think
going
you
to.
gotta push the limits. Like
Right.
even if you still gotta play this game, like
Right.
maybe try and like push it a little bit. See how far you can get on your
Right.
own. Like try and improve.
And that's what I see with most people that are trying to get out of depression. And this is like they don't even want to fight it because they want to latch on to the excuse. Because how am I going to tell people that I'm not successful? Well, I have to blame something.
It's a lot easier to just
depression.
Yeah.
Depression's a good one because the doctor even said it's not my fault. So I think I should be good. Yeah. So those are the things. Yeah. It's so crazy, but it's so awesome to hear, like kind of learn your transformation, like you're talking differently. And I mean, you're talking about like, dude, just because of my shoes, I didn't even know they were messed up. You're like, I don't know what the big deal was.
Yeah.
And now look at you. You're like
that
helping people.
The thing as an adult, again, I got to say, like, especially as you're living like the successful life, like people start having stuff. Like I know certain friends of mine are like, I want to get a Rolex. They finally got some money and they went and got a Rolex. And like, I that's great. Like the self-confidence and like all that good feeling of like wanting that, accomplishing it. That's a wonderful thing and everything.
Yeah.
It's also possible that wasn't necessarily the smartest use of your money at that point in time. And it may come back to bite you, but that's life. You're allowed to make mistakes. And, part of growing up is like, wanting all those things maybe, but at a certain point you realize some things are important to me, other things are more important. And, happiness, knowing that you're doing the right things and treating people right, those are like far more important. Helping people.
Yeah, so I think we're going to end it with that. We already went over our hour mark, but hey, I'm so happy for you, man. Your transformation is awesome, and I'm happy what you're doing with film, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you do and what other topics you're going to get into that's going to help freaking people, and I'm sure there's going to be ones that are crazy also. Hey, another way of helping people is through entertainment. So, you don't have to be serious all the time.
Sure.
Yeah, but thank you so much for joining us, Jeremy. I really appreciate it. I hope our audience kind of learned a little more about your experiences and really, handling their own adversities with what you went through and, how you changed.
One thing, if anybody wants to watch my films, the best way to watch my films is to go to Amazon and type in my full name, Jeremy Norrie, and all my films should pop up. And there's a couple different apps where you can watch them too. Anywhere where you stream stuff, you can type my name in, and anything that I have on there should come up.
Awesome. Actually, I'm going to show the people right now what's up.
Yeah, and I have an Instagram and I have a Facebook. It's called @SkyIslandStorytelling, and that's how you follow me.
So boom, Jeremy Norrie.
There
This
it is.
all here.
Yep. There you go.
Boom. So that's awesome. So check out his stuff. And then, this is the stuff that we were talking about today, the cannabis versus cancer. Looks like he helped. Actually, there was another one, the mindfulness. Where's, this one.
Mindfulness is a good one. And Why We Fight is a good one too for people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yes. So guys, check it out. His name is Jeremy Norrie. Just put it into Amazon and all his films will automatically show up. I have the link to his IMDb, on the text description below. So definitely check that out and, just learn a little bit and, follow him. What's your Instagram handle so everyone knows?
It's at Sky Island Storytelling.
Perfect. Yeah. So follow him on there, see what new films he's doing, and then we'll catch up with him. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Jeremy, thank you again. I hope everyone learned something. And until then, see ya.
My pleasure. Thank you.